I'm Dr. Stacy Loyalist, and I'll be your tour guide through this morning. And welcome to our professional development session. We're going to hopefully give you some value-added information along with getting you, importantly, some professional development credit. So, you know that, and we've got information in the chat on that. We'll provide it again to you at the end to make sure that you get your credit and your documentation and all that good stuff. But again, I'm Dr. Stacy Loyalist, and I am an assistant professor in the Department of Leadership Studies in the primarily in the school leadership and district leadership program. And certainly we are honored to be able to bring this service to you guys across the state of Arkansas. We appreciate you spending a hot summer morning with us again. And again, hopefully we give you some valuable information along with that PD credit, something that you can go and use, or at least think about, and maybe consider some perspectives and mindsets and whatnot as you move into the next school year, your preparation and building your capacity. So without further ado, let me get a screen share going here, and hopefully I can manage this. I'm telling you, everything seems to be a challenge for me, but let's see if we can't make something happen here. So far, no good. There we go. Well, there we are. So as I was saying, this slide just showcases those of you that may be interested in pursuing future. I recognize a few names of the attendees who are, and thank you for turning out. Bless your heart. If I recognize your name, that means you recognize me, and then so bless your heart, you're having to. You signed up for brutality of listening to the Loyalist guy more than you already have in class. But for the rest of you, these are some examples of our online programs that we have. Certainly master's degree, certainly postmaster's certificates, and now we even have a PhD program that you can look into and pursue. And of course, we've had a PhD program, but we've added some elements and really have made that more robust. So really check that out if that's something of interest to you. So for today, I just threw this up there. These are a couple of my favorite quotes. It's kind of worth just, I'll let you read those. And it sums up a little bit, I guess, holistically as we look into today's what we're going to be talking about. I think this puts it in an overarching term. So pretty cool quotes there I wanted to share with you. So what are we doing today? Well, if you remember signing up for this way back when, what we're doing is we're going to discuss some strategies that we can use as educators to work on the work, to borrow a term from the late Dr. Phil Slechte, that he was a hero to me, and certainly was a huge part of what a foundation of my ideology and methodology about Stowe and another Agi of pedagogy, right? So so when we work on the work, what we're talking about is what we do as adults in the school business, what we do as educators to provide learning experiences that are beyond the scope of what we would traditionally think of. That perhaps if you're like me and you went to school in the 60s and 70s and early 80s, then you remember a very different time. The model of learning at that point, prior to prior to all of this technology that we have, and that our young people are so efficient and such experts at. Prior to that, we had the Encyclopedia Britannica, perhaps, or World Book, and we had libraries where we went and tangibly, looked at written books. But our viewpoint to the world of knowledge was through our teachers. So, or other experts that we may come in contact with during our formative years. So the model of learning was very different. We had to go through the learned ones, the expert, the sage on the stage. We had to go through to access the knowledge about a given content area in the curriculum. If we're referring to school, which in this case we are, we would be talking about that portion of all knowledge that we parcel down to say, well, this is the curriculum. These are the things that we deem important for our children to know, and therefore children go to the school, past the flagpole, in through the open doors, sit in this desk passively and listen to the experts as we lay it on you, baby. Because we're going to give you a textbook. You'll answer the questions at the end of the textbook. Oh, by the way, here's some worksheets too. Sit there, shut your mouth, listen to what I say, and do the worksheets, and don't say anything else about it. Or I'll send you to the office and we'll bust your tail. That's the way it used to be. Well, that model is no longer relevant, people. But there's an old joke that says, how you get in a spaceship and it flies off and you time warp, and somehow 100 years go by, but you're in space, so you survive all that, and you land back on this unknown planet. You have no idea where you're at. You're walking around. It's been 100 years. Everything looks so different. Finally, you stumble upon a schoolhouse and you walk in. And you go, "Oh, I'm back on Earth. Nothing's changed here." So we got to change, people. So enough of that. So what are we doing? We're taking a look today at some very simplistic. I gotta re-wrangle myself here as to what it is. Back to this original question: what are we doing today? Why are we here? So we're here to share with you some simple ideas and strategies that you probably already do. In fact, I know that you already do these things, but I want to frame it to you in such a way, because we always, everybody's going after this next big gadget, this next big thing. We always try to reinvent the wheel in education, and we call it a different thing. First off, we call it this round thing, then we call it a wheel, then we call it this thing of this who's or what's it that rolls, and then we just rebrand the same stuff, the same ideas over and over again, call it something different, frame it something different, and then we always attach a price tag to it, because some slick salesman is going up to lobby some politician somewhere and say, hey, this is what you need, this is the next big thing, or they roll up the Cadillac in front of the administration office and they sell it to the superintendent for a free round of golf or something. And then, next thing you know, you're in professional development at the beginning of the school year, and you get a one-day, one-off training on this next magic thing that's going to happen, that's going to reshape the whole education landscape. And then, they're in, they're out, they have their money, they cash their check, they're having lunch on, they're playing golf and having lunch. You're sitting in there in the classroom, with this new thing that you barely know how to use because you only had a couple of hours of professional development on it. And oh, by the way, is there ongoing training? No one's going to give you that. There's no support. It's not what it's probably some, you know what I'm saying, guys. We've all been there, right? As educators, we've all been there. I spent 32 years in the business as a public educator. So been there, done it, got the t-shirt. I know what you're going through. I get it. So I spent my life hanging out in this ivory tower. So what I'm trying to say, what it boils down to is everybody tries to make this complicated. Oh man, it's this recipe, it's this formula. You got to do this, 1, 2, 3, ABC, automaton robots, everybody do this. But no, look, education is not that way, because you're different. Each of those classrooms have a different dynamics. Your students are unique, you're unique. So there's got to be a range of autonomy. Teaching is a craft, It's an art form. Yes, there's some science that we can integrate into it. Certainly there is. However, man, it's a people business. We're not making widgets. It's not an assembly line. It's not a one size fits all model. It's ever fluid, ever changing, ever dynamic, day to day, hour to hour, minute to minute. You guys know that. So what we're doing today is we're trying to take a look at some simple strategies and things that we can do to make that work, that learning experience better. Because if that's not part of our process, then what in the heck are we doing? So that's what we're doing today is we're taking a look at some ways. And now there's a lot of fancy language in this little intro that we're looking at. You know, all these words and we're going to look. What it boils down to is what I want to do is let's have a discussion today about perhaps what we can do as educators to make the work better. You know, what can we do to keep from getting beat up? Because we're getting beat up, people. If you're a public educator, we're all getting beat up in a lot of ways. Okay. And quite honestly, a lot of times, and this may anger you, but it angers me because I'm calling myself out. A lot of times we deserve the criticism because we're not moving the needle. And we'll take a look at that in a little bit too. So why is this work important? So what are we doing today? You've listened to me run my mouth a little bit about. So now I'm going to run my mouth a little more about, well, why is this important? Why in the heck are we here today? You know, what are we doing and why in the heck is it important? Well, the reason it's important is take a look at this. Look, Homer says that we haven't moved, you know, we talk about moving the needle. We haven't moved the needle since 1973. We've been completely static. Matter of fact, we're going backwards. That's not good. That's not a good thing. Take a look at some of these numbers. This is pretty cool, right? This is outstanding stuff. And keep in mind that in Arkansas, we're kind of at the end of the line of this end of the line. That's a great place to be. So, you know, unchanged since 2005, unchanged since 1992. 12th grade African-American performance in math, 7% at or above proficient in math, 17%. Now this is you know, this particular data is from 2015, but as I've already showed you, the overall report 2019, it didn't change either. And I haven't checked this in a couple of days, couple of minutes, so there could be a new report out, but I'm telling you, the needle's not moving. Can you imagine? like we made great progress during COVID. We all know that's not the case. So these numbers are atrocious and they're horrid. So, you know, here's some more. The good news, the hits just keep coming, right? Average scores in 8th grade math down. Average reading scores both in 4th grade and 8th grade down. That's, you know, 2019 versus 2017. So there's some more fresh numbers. And give you a link if you want to check this out, Nation's report card. And so, you know, if that's something you want to check out, that's always, you know, cool to look at that data. You know, as local educators, we don't think about that stuff. We don't look at things on a national scale. We don't look at those reports. We don't think about it. We only look at the data from our schools. We look at student output for our students, right? We don't think about, well, are we moving the needle nationally? You know, we'll get all this federal attention. The feds keep, you know, wanting to reach their long arm of the law into everything. Well, you know, obviously that hasn't been successful. Obviously nothing's been successful. We're not doing it, you know, we're not moving the needle. So, you know, the definition of insanity, we all know that, right? So in my opinion, that's why it's important that we have these discussions. So here's some other outstanding numbers and some, you know, link if you want to jot that down. You know, just horrid. Look at those numbers, just terrible. And if you want to talk about inclusivity, if you want to talk about cultural responsiveness, you know, look at these numbers right here. If you want to talk about equity, folks, and inclusivity, we're obviously not hitting the bar. We're not hitting the mark. We're not doing the right things. So, and further on the why, you know, I alluded to this a little bit earlier. Is homeschool growing? Well, absolutely it is. Partially because, you know, we're failing. The numbers show we're failing, and you know, pandemic has shown parents, hey, wait a minute, we can take this show on the road. You know, private schools, charter schools, online academies funded with public tax dollars. You guys know that's going on, right? I mean, it's going on like crazy. Hey, they're sprouting up. You know, Pearson started it, and good for them. They do a fantastic job. Not blasting on Pearson, They do a great job. They're fantastic. And they're in all 50 states now. They started the deal, doing it well. But same credentials, same accreditation, funded with public tax dollars, all from the comfort of the child's smartphone or laptop or tablet or what have you. Let's talk. Look, we all know about this. Social emotional well-being of our society is of our young people. Okay, are we checking that box? Apparently not. I mean, what are we doing wrong? Because apparently we're doing a lot wrong, and we have to look at this honestly. We have to look at this, and I'm going to talk about this in a little bit as well. Now, you know what? I don't want a spoiler alert. We're going to move forward. So, well, here it is right here. Throw it in anyway. So, here's kind of what I've come to the conclusion of. My opinion. I get to think, feel, and believe. It's a dangerous thing that I get to think, feel, and believe, but I do. And so, what I've come to the conclusion, and others, other people, I'm not alone in this, is that we're not reflecting enough, we're not analyzing enough about what we do as adults in school. What we do is we look like crazy. We're always looking at student outcome. You guys get your little PLC meetings, you look at student data, nod your heads, give me a thumbs up. I can see some of you. yeah, you do. You're in those PLC meetings, you're looking at that student data. Hey, we got formative data, we got summative data, we got this data, that data, we got all kinds of data. Well, who's the data about? Well, it's about the students, it's about their performance. And when they fail and when they don't move, when we don't move the needle, and we often don't, most times we don't, okay, whether that be on a local level, district level, regional level, state level, whatever, we don't really move the needle. Come on, rarely the schools go from, good to great or fair to good, or, sometimes they do. And I invite you to go find those schools that do and ask them what they do. I bet you're going to find a commonality, but I'll leave that work to you. But I'm telling you that those schools are rare that move the needle, that go from, oh man, we've really been stinking it up, to, 3 years later, look at us, hey, our flag's flying high. You don't see that a lot. You do see it. And it's worth looking at what those people do, because look, if you want to get better, go find the people that are doing it better than you. But with that being said, what this focus on student outcomes does for us is it gives us a deficit mindset. And we've all been caught in this trap. We've all taught in schools that have this trap, and we got to, maybe you're currently in one of those, or maybe you're currently in that mindset. But it gives you that mindset, well, I taught them, I don't know what the problem is. Hey, I showed up to class, I presented the curriculum, I threw them a textbook, we did some activities. I don't know why they didn't learn it. I taught it. I don't know what their problem is. I'll tell you what the problem is. Those kids are stupid. Kids are stupid today, right? That's a deficit thinking. That's deficit mindset. These kids come from a bad home. These kids' parents aren't engaged and involved. They don't care. These kids, half of the kids don't even have parents. They're growing up with their grandparents. Their parents are in jail. Their parents are cooking meth. Their parents, blah, 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 blah. These kids, they don't go to the right church. These kids are poor. These kids are this, that. That's a deficit mindset. Who cares? Look, when they walk past that flagpole and in the front door, they're our kids. They're our responsibility. We meet them where they're at, and we coach them up. By gosh, we coach them up. We own it. That's our responsibility. We don't shift that responsibility off and blame somebody else and say, I don't know, I did my job, I don't know what their problem is. Okay, that's deficit thinking. And you know what it prevents us from doing? It prevents us from being that professional learning community that we aspire to be, that we say we do. We got the poster out front. We say we're a PLC. We got t-shirts that say, oh, we're PLC. Oh, look, but are we really growing? Are we really learning? Are we really, as an organization, are we moving forward? Or are we just blaming the other people? I don't know. Something to think about. So after we get through yakking and we get through going through today, how will we know if we're doing it well? I don't know. Well, tell us, Lois. So what we'll do is we'll see. You can see right here, I've got some excellent copy paste work going on in the presentation. I know you're extremely impressed with that. So in the title of today, this term agency, right? It keeps it if you pay attention, if you're into this whole pedagogy, methodology, instruction, blah, and obviously you are, you wouldn't be here today, and hopefully you are, because you're an educator, and that's kind of what we do as educators. But this terminology, for years and years, we've had this term engagement. Nobody really has ever known what the heck it means. We just throw it around like engagement. Oh, what is engagement? What does it look like? How do we measure it? Well, I don't know. We're chasing it though. My gosh, we want more engagement. Well, again, what is it? How do we measure it? What does it look like? What do kids do when they're engaged? What, I don't know, but we're chasing it. So agency now has become the new buzzword, and and I love it. I'm telling you, it is a fantastic mindset and a way to frame sort of what we mean by engagement, and particularly when we're talking about those underserved, underrepresented populations. Because what I challenge you to think about is what we're designed to do in education. And I really want you to think about this. Is we're designed to exploit compliance. Think about that. We're designed as units and organizations to exploit compliance, meaning that what we really like is those kids from those families that probably would do fine without us. They roll up in the schoolhouse, and whether they're engaged or not, whether they're really interested or not, whether they really respect what we're saying or not, doesn't matter. They're there, and they're going to put a smile on their face because they want to make the teacher happy. Really what they want to do is make the good grade so they can make their parents happy, and so they can go to the good schools and have the good career, because that's all been laid out for them. So they're going to sit at their desk and comply with our stupid work, whether they find any value in it or not, and say, yes, ma'am, yes, sir, thank you very much. Oh yes, let me do this silly worksheet. Let me read this silly book. Let me do your silly project. Let me color map. Let me color in a map. For senior level geography. Though, well, that's really challenging for me. Let me color some maps. Come on, but they're going to do it. So they comply with our silly activities and our silly work, whether they're any good or not. We're designed for compliance. But what about all those children that roll up into the schoolhouse that maybe aren't really wired in their DNA to be compliant? Maybe they're hungry. Maybe they just, witnessed a huge fight at home. Maybe they have some emotional anxieties and problems, and they're not safe. They're hungry. We haven't even taken care of their basic biological needs, for crying out loud. And you think they're just going to march right in, sit in our desk and listen to us and respect us and salute us and do our silly work just because they're not interested in compliance? How do we reach those kids? How do we move those kids out of rebellion and retreat? That's the challenge, right? At best case scenario, they retreat, they don't cause any trouble. They don't do any work, they don't cause any trouble. Retreat is one thing. Rebellion, that's a whole other issue, right? That's when they become frustrated. They've got an agenda. It's not yours. They have an agenda. It's just not what you want it to be. Okay. They're not compliant. I mean, they're engaged. They're engaged in pursuing their own agenda. So what about those kids? Those kids that don't show up and are apt to be strategically compliant, meaning I want to do the thing. I want to get the grade. I don't care whether I see value in it or not. I just want to do the thing so I can get to the next thing. But honestly, I'm going to be fine without you because my family has already given me the foundation and pretty much a lot of the basic tools. I'm going to be fine with it without you. I'm just playing your silly game, right? So the agency and engagement has a lot to do. So, if you've had an opportunity, and you probably have, because you probably read the, are they perseverant? Are they willing to meet the challenges? Are they willing to stay with it? Do they have choice and voice? We've all heard about that. Do they have any choice in the matter? Do they get to pick something they're interested in, something that's relevant to them, that pertains to them, that they can see the reason? Have we even addressed the reason? And we'll get to that in a moment, right? So what's the purpose? I mean, if they don't find any purpose, they're going to, can you see where, read this and then think worst case scenario, right? Read this thing, read about agency, and then think worst case scenario. Think about that kid that comes, past that flagpole in the door, and they kind of having a rough time in life, right? Everything's not nice and smooth for them. And you add to it confusion, lack of purpose, indecisiveness, feeling like it's a waste of time. Oh, Can you see where that's just, we're kind of throwing a spark on, we're doing some gaslighting there. You see, you get that? I know you do. So again, how do we know when we're doing it well? Well, what are we trying to do? We're trying to give better work to kids, better experiences, better learning environment. Well, we know that when kids are happy, when they're fulfilling, when they're sticking with a problem, when they're pursuing interest deeper at a deeper level, and you'll see it when discipline goes down, when attendance goes up, when these things can happen. All right, you may. So that's what we're doing. Hopefully. All right, so now let's really get started. You're thinking, what are you talking about? You've been blabbing at us for 30 minutes. What do you mean now let's really get started? All right. Hey, part of this is thinking like a designer, right? You may think, okay, well, what is that? I'm a teacher. I'm not a designer. Well, thinking like a design, when you think of design, what comes to mind? I'll hear from the gallery. What comes to mind? Not everyone at once. Oh, I see you guys are doing it in the chat. I encourage you just to just to shout it out over, you don't have to be polite. Hey, we're here on a summer morning. But what we mean by that is, some of you guys, designing involves something custom, something original, something creative, like, right, so we saw some comments in the chat. Planning involves, more content, substance, curriculum. We've got to hit these boxes, and scope and like a scope and sequence, or a year to glance. Those types of curriculum, that's planning. Hey, here's where we got to go, and we got to get there in this amount of time. All right, those are non-negotiables, or they should be. Administratively, that's the way we think, or we should think about. Those are non-negotiables. Look, I know the dinosaur unit's cool, but we can't spend half the year on the dinosaur unit. We got to move forward here. We got to hit some other dimensions and content here for accountability reasons, and we've got to move forward. So as we think like a designer, it's more custom, right? So custom to who? The student. It begins, like if you're building a house, you'd love the opportunity to pick out your countertops, wouldn't you? Color a carpet, color walls, you love all that stuff. Like the blueprint, see that the guy's looking at a blueprint. I mean, so say we're going to have a 2,200 square foot house, 3 bedrooms, 3 bath, 2-car garage, yada, yada. All those are, that structure is really not design. That's kind of more planning. All right, look, this is how big the lot is. This is how much money we have for square feet. This is how many bedrooms. None of that's particularly custom. When we start talking about design, that's when we start talking about those individual elements. Choices. What color carpet? Do we want carpet? We want tile. We want hardwood floor. We want granite countertops. We want, what do we want here? We want stainless steel. Well, if you're watching HGTV, you want stainless steel. You want granite countertop, because they tell you that, right? I mean, that's what we're brainwashed into thinking. Well, you got to have that. You're not cool unless you have that. So that's design, and that's what we want to do for our students. We want to think more like, okay, look, what do they want? What's going to make them happy? What's pleasing to them? So we start shifting that mindset about, look, not necessarily what's easy for us or what, but what's best for them, right? So that's part of sort of setting the stage. And like I said, planning is more what, when, it's content, sequence, that curriculum documents. which are important. I'm not negating the importance of those. Keeping on schedule is really important, and those formative processes. But again, what am I talking about? That speaks to process, what adults do, not student outcomes necessarily, and that's what we always want to look at. So so today's, I hesitate to say lesson, today's think about, when I thought about sharing this with you, I thought, I need to, I'm saying this is simple. What could I attach? What kind of little, so 3-4-6 for engagement and agency. That's something I'm going to posit that. I'm going to opine about that. 3-4-6 for engagement and 8. Okay, Loyalist, what do you mean? What 3-4-6? 3 questions. Now, if you remember anything from today, and you take away anything from today in our time together here, is this that we're doing right now. 3 questions. 3 questions are really important to start this process as an educator. Process of what? Giving the kids better work. So as an educator, these questions that I'm about to put on you. Now, actually, we've already done them today. I'm trying to model what I'm saying, but everyone should be able to answer this. The first person that needs to answer these questions is you, the teacher, the instructor, the tour guide of knowledge. Because really, we're all just knowledge workers. No one's really teaching anyone these days. We have access. We all have access to information. We're not kidding anyone about, oh, well, I've really got the knowledge. You don't. You can if you want it. I mean, we all have access to all knowledge about all things that's in the world at any given time. And I got news for you. Today's about teacher efficacy. Let's talk about efficacy of being able to access knowledge. You know who can access knowledge with greater efficacy than you or I? The kids. The kids can access knowledge. The problem is they don't always know what to do with it or where to go to get the best knowledge. They know how to get knowledge. It just may not be the knowledge they need to get, or once they get it, they don't know what to do with it, which again is what we alluded to in agency back yonder ways when we were talking about that a few slides back. So 3 questions. What are we doing? And remember, these questions serve as the foundation for the work that you do as an educator. Now, later on, you want every student in your room to be able to answer this quite articulately, and not just, oh, well, this you can't expect for first graders and kindergartners to answer these questions. Well, yeah, they can. Yes, they can. Yes, they most certainly can. First graders, 4th graders, 10th graders, they all can answer these questions in their own ways, right? Certainly there's some context to it. You wouldn't expect the same answer about these questions from a first grader as you would a junior in high school. You would hope that there's some differentiation there in the amount of information they could give you and the style of which they deliver it. Wait, that's just common sense. But I hear people shun these methodologies. I've heard it. I did some consulting work in a previous life. And when I used to work with elementary teachers, no offense to you guys, because you guys are, those of you that are elementary workers and intermediate workers, educators, folks, you really carry the ball. I mean, you're the ones that carry the ball. I mean, you really do the work, right? I mean, I'm just saying that wholeheartedly and sincerely, because I mean, let's be honest, you do the work. However, there's times that you guys push back on things because you're protecting your babies. It's that instinct. Well, I'm protecting my babies. My babies can't tolerate this. This is too much for my babies. They can't think on their own and choice. No. They need me. They need me. They need me to love them and shape them. They need me. Well, of course they need you, but they also need to grow and sprout. So just hang on with me, kind of bear with me today, and give me a little space to share with you so at least spend a couple of minutes thinking about the fact that yes, it is okay to be accountable to our children and have them be accountable to being able to answer these questions. And you might be wondering why I'm yakking on about this, but through the years, I've had so much pushback that, well, you're not, you can't hold first graders accountable for this. So again, right now, we're not even talking about the students. That was a little bird walk I did. But right now we're saying, first off, we as educators need to think about these questions before we ever get started. Before we ever get in front of the children, we need to think about these things. So what are we doing? Why are we doing it? Why is it important? And I will tell you, if you want a secret, you really want to know the one that sticks, this is the one that sticks. You want to know the one that really changes and moves things, this is the one. Because in my time, both as a practitioner and an ivory tower person, what I've come to find over and over and over again is that we ourselves as educators can't answer this question. We can't answer. Oftentimes we can't answer. Well, here's the answer we give a lot of times. It's on the test. It's in the curriculum. It's on the test. That's not compelling, folks. That is not a compelling reason to take an adventure in learning. Why are we doing this? Well, it's on the test. It's in the curriculum. Administration said, the state said, the Fed said, they said. Well, who are they? And what the heck do they know? So let's get really down to the issue. Why are we even messing with this? Why is it important? Because if you can't answer it, let's think about that kid walking in that's not compliant, that perhaps is in rebellion or retreat. You can't answer it for them. You think they're going to roll in there and go, oh, I'm so happy to learn this today. If you don't even know why it's important as the teacher. So we got to answer this question first ourselves, or we darn sure can't expect the kids to care. Now, again, you'll have those that are compliant that'll do it. They don't need to know why. They don't care. Doesn't matter to them. They know why. They have their why. Their why is to make the good grades, make their parents happy, meet expectations, go to the best, get admitted into the best colleges, yada, 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 do what mom and dad, grandma and grandpa say, do what the family expects. Well, what about that? I don't know how you guys grew up, but my mom and dad, God rest their souls, they didn't give a flying, they didn't care. Neither one of them graduated from high school. They didn't care anything about what. In fact, as time went on, they kind of made fun of me for all that stuff. Yeah, you and all your fancy books and learning and all that. What do you need all that for? Boys need to get out there and get a job. You get a lot of that, right? And I'm not making fun of that culture. There's beauty to that as well, right? I mean, I'm not making fun of anything, but I'm just saying we got to answer this question, because you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We expect, because it's important to us. Oh, we love school. We love books. We love our subject. We love English or art or whatever, math or science, whatever it is we teach. We love that. It's important to us. And we assume that it's important to everyone. Well, it's not. Secret. Spoiler alert. It's not. Might not be important to those kids as they roll up. What might be important is being safe. What are they going to eat? Give them a reason. Your reason may not be important to them. Why should it resonate? Why is it important? And third question, how do we or will we know if we're doing it well? So 3 questions that you need to ask. What are we doing? Why are we doing it? How do we or will we know if we're doing it well? All right. So there's the 3. Remember we were talking about 3, 4, 6? There's the 3 right there. And you start with that. And if you don't get anything else, at least get that. Because I promise you, I've seen the results. Look, I mean, I don't want to bore you with it. I'm not trying to interject myself into the story here that much. But I will tell you, you may think, well, what if those 3 little silly questions did? You can change an entire learning culture of a school and move the needle with just those 3 silly little questions and nothing else. No gadget, no widget, no yada, 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 do this, 1, 2, 3, ABC, administrators come in your class, PLC meetings 3 hours a day, lesson plan template, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all that's neat, I guess, sort of, whatever. I'm just telling you, I've moved the needle incredible amounts with very problematic and difficult school situations and students with just those 3 questions. Myself, I say I did, my team, my teachers, my people, my community, my students. You can shape an entire learning culture around those 3 questions. Now, I've got approaching 15 years of data to back it up. I won't bore you with it, and I'm not showing you lines of fit today to impress you. I'm just here to share, let you do some thinking about things. Those 3 questions. That alone, we could stop. We could shut down right now. Call it good. That really, honestly, would be all you need. What are we doing? That's not a hard one. That's scope and sequence. That's curriculum. So that question is already answered. Pretty darn easy. This is the hard one. Why are we doing it? Why is it important? Why do we care? And for any organization, you want to find your true north, find your why. Find your why. You find your why, you're going to find your true north. It's going to be backed up by common values. It's going to be backed up. It's going to play into the vision. You're answering everything when you answer this. How do we or will we know if we're doing it well? That's just that's assessment methodology, in any variety and shape. Not talking about a test, not talking about standardized test. Could be, might not be, probably isn't, because that's not authentic assessment. We know that, right? There are much better ways of assessing work. And one of the things is observing our students to see if they're engaged, to see if they're reflecting an agentic attitude. Now, there's a fancy word for agentic. Yeah, check that out. That's fancy. If they start caring about the learning because of the learning, yeah, okay, the grade becomes secondary. They get into flow. You want to look at something fascinating, you probably studied flow theory. Study flow theory. Flow theory is when you're so much into something, you're so focused, you lose track of time. You lose track of, you're just in it. You're in it to win it. And when we can, that's magic. That's like performing a magic act with students. If we can get them to that level, that's freaking magic. So those 3 questions. Now let's talk about 4 essentials that got to be there in our work. And these aren't, listen, you already know this. This is like administrative 101 where people are telling you this. This has probably been part, this stuff right here will be part of your in-service coming up in August, promise you. When you're sitting there in in-service, somebody's going to tell you some shape, form, or fashion that you need to do this at some point in time. Now they may change the words, they may change the framework, because can you overlay this with the test model, which is based on framework for teaching from Charlotte Danielson? Can you lay this over and overlay and find commonalities? Absolutely, 100%. Promise you. Done. Take it and look at the domain, at the planning domain and test framework. It's going to be this right here. Content and substance. Well, that's not earth-shattering. That's curriculum. Organization of knowledge. It's there. Planning. Clear and compelling expectations. How do we know if we're doing it well? Protection from adverse consequences. Well, that can really be summarized in what I've already talked today about is a not yet attitude. You throw a shout to Carol Dweck and her not yet growth mindset, as opposed to what we've already talked about, deficit thinking mindset. Okay, it's protection from adverse consequences and initial failures, understanding that complications, problems, a little bit of anxiety and stress is part of the learning process. But if they're in it to win it, then they're going to power through all that. They're going to get through that discomfort and understand that momentary discomfort, that momentary lack of ability or complications, it's just part of it. We'll get past it. It's okay. We're here to support you as you go through these problems. Don't give up. You're not there yet. It's okay. So 4 essentials that have to be, and that's like we can take a closer look. Content and substance. This is what we want our students to know and be able to do. That part of the knowledge that we deem important enough to teach in school. Because there's a lot of knowledge out there about any given subject. We can't teach it all. We got to partial it down. We got to shrink that down to, okay, what about math that we want them to know? What about reading? Do we want, what about English? What about history? What about, we got all these things. We got to push it down to manageable bites to be able to put out there. State standards, scope and sequence, curriculum. What are we doing? There's that question again. What are we doing? Are you seeing the overlay in this? Pow, pow, pow. There's overlay in these concepts. Organization of knowledge. All right, what learning styles do I need to address? What instructional strategies could I use? Is there any practicality? Now we're under what technologies could be employed? What's the current level of student interest in the content? Are there prior learning gaps that need to be addressed and integrated? Any remediation activities that need to be included, and how will we include them? So this is the question: the practicality, the learning style consideration. This is why we're doing it, and it certainly goes into a little bit of what we may be doing too. So there's some crossover, right? But we got to answer these questions. Organization of knowledge. As we bridge the gap from plan to design, right? That's really what step we're taking here. Clear and compelling expectations. Well, I think this is pretty darn obvious. What are some models? What are some demonstrations? What does quality look like? Don't keep it a secret. Don't keep it a secret. What does real quality look like? And how can you deliver that? All right. And here's that protection of adverse consequences for initial failures. It's part of the process. Growth mindset, opposite of deficit thinking. I've said. Now, if growth mindset appeals to you, please check out Carol Dweck's work. If why resonates with you at all, I invite you to watch Simon Sinek, some of his work. Simon Sinek. I mean, you just cursory Google search can pull these people up if any of that resonates with you. But finding that true north, that why, that's really becoming and gaining a lot of appeal and support. So there was the 4. So far we've covered a lot of earth-shattering stuff, right? 3 simple questions and 4 things that we do every day anyway, or should be doing, with the only deviation there of consideration from standard instructional methodology is inclusion of, keep in mind, leave some space for meeting students where they come to you, and that's initial failures and initial struggle is okay. It's just part of the learning process. When we're assessing, there should be space for that. There should be space for struggle. It's an important aspect beyond just curriculum and assessment. If you'll go back and notice, 2 of the 4, I mean, this isn't really earth-shattering. 2 of the 4 can really be thought of as curriculum and assessment. So nothing earth-shattering there. Nothing to see here, folks. Move on. One of which is really just a mindset. Space for initial failure, protection of adverse consequences for initial failure in the learning process, meeting our students where they're at, providing for their security, their support, and their well-being. Honestly, should we be doing that anyway? Nothing to see here, folks. Moving on. Organization of knowledge, that's just keeping in mind the learning styles and the delivery mechanisms. And we're about to get to some delivery thinkabouts that help us look more closely at the organization of knowledge. That's where the 6 spices come in. 3, 4, 6. 3, 4, 6. Title of my next book, perhaps. Like I write a lot of books. Okay, 6 spices. Well, here they are. Here they are. Here's the moment we've all been waiting for. There they are. Product focus, affirmation, affiliation, novelty, variety, choice, and authenticity. Well, a lot of those words, a lot of that sounds really fancy. Well, let's break it down. Product focus. Well, we've all heard about, okay, product learning, got, project-based learning. All right, oh, there's one. Google that. You'll find a million articles on it. Okay, but we think, okay, we think we got to think about this more inclusive and more holistically, more from a balcony view. All right, a product could be a lot of different things. It could be a performance, it could be a demonstration, it could be a modeling, it could be something, it could be a video product. There's all kinds of products. It's limitless. Let your imagination run wild. More importantly, let the student's imagination run wild. Okay, with guidance. with guidance, of course. We don't need to limit this. It doesn't have to be a tangible. We always think back like, oh, science fair project. They're bringing, oh, we're going to build a teepee because we're studying native culture. Okay, yeah, that's product, but does that product have any meaning? Does it really mean anything at the end of the day? What is it? It doesn't have to be something tangible. We're not, so it takes on a broader context. Affirmation, all that is appreciation. Somebody's judging it, somebody's looking at it, someone's going to see it. That's just a fancy word for, yeah, that's pretty good, kid. Is anyone going to look at it? Is anyone going to care? You know, affirmation becomes important. Affiliation, that's just kind of work, you know, because a lot of these, and when we talk about being culturally responsive in our instruction, you know, that's a thing. You've probably heard of it, cultural responsive instruction. You know, collectivity is an important part that we miss a lot, right, of being collective. And working with others is being collective. And there's a lot of kids that really enjoy that. And there's a lot of kids that don't necessarily enjoy it, just like as adults. Some of you love to work in groups. Some of you, oh, no partners for me, no group for me. Count me out of that. No. I want to be on my own island. Part of that is good independence. Part of that is not healthy for any of us, right? Because we really all can't be in isolation. Certainly the idea of being a professional learning organization, professional learning, it should be, and then, you know, should be supportive. It should be, there's strength in collectivity, right? We know that. So that's what affiliation, it's just a fancy word for working with other people, working purposely with other people. Affirmation, again, that's just, is someone going to judge it, look at it? Is anyone going to care? Makes a difference. Or is this just going to be a check mark in the grade book? Because we really don't care about check marks, and neither do they. Unless they're those kids that walk through and want to be compliant, they're looking for the good grade, and they're really going to, they'll be fine they'll be fine without us. That may hurt our feelings, but they really will. Novelty and variety, it kind of speaks for itself. Is there anything unique about this experience? Is it, you know, or are we just doing a worksheet? We're reading a textbook. You know, we're going to watch a video. That's not novel anymore. That used to be novel. Oh, let's watch a YouTube video, or let's watch a video. Oh, you know, kids used to think that was really cool. I mean, I remember back in the day when I was teaching in the 80s and 90s and all that. You show a kid some video, man. It's like, wow, ooh, video. This is cool. Man, I don't care about that anymore. Is it unique? Is it novels or some variation? Is this something new and unique and novel? Here's a big one. A lot of data on this. We hear a lot about it. It's built into our definition of agency, for crying out loud. Choice. Is there choice? Do they have choice? Choice and voice. That's kind of the popular thing to say. All right, if you can find a way to give them some choice. Now, I'm not saying you give them free will. You know, what if you give them variety? What if you say, well, listen, there's three things that you kind of analyze and think, well, there's three things. We'll give them a choice of three. I mean, some choice is better than no choice. And authenticity, that's that relevance. Is there a way that's really answering that critical why question? Why should they care? What about this knowledge, this content, this could be authentic, meaningful, is a way that they can translate it to something they could maybe do in their day-to-day life, or something they could see doing in their future day-to-day life. All right, it doesn't have to be authentic to them now. It could be authentic to their aspirations. That's still authentic, right? So product focus, and you know, here's just a little bit in print. a concise package of the babbling I was doing about product focus. And as you can see, we expand on that concept. It could be a performance exhibition that they care about and that others may affirm, right? Is it going to be valued by others? Are there audience to see their work, hear their work, displayed on a school website, perhaps around the school, perhaps down at the bank downtown? You know, maybe they share it out in the community. We always talk about community engagement, but then we, you know, what we really mean by community engagement is we're going to invite the parents up for hot dog night, and then as far as business partners, we go around asking for money. Well, that's not really a partnership. That's just asking for money. So you want to make partnerships, you've got to get out there and work these different concepts that sometimes have their foundation in these in growing an interest in what the kids are doing at the school. Because isn't that really what people are interested in? What are the kids doing at the school? You know, how do you change the perception of school, and how do you change the perception of the kids? Well, you plug the kids into the community and not just show up to the community asking for money all the time. That's not a partnership. You know, there's a difference in a handshake. A handshake is a partnership. Okay? This is not a partnership. And believe me, your business is out in the community. That's the way they look at it. Every time they see a school person come in the door, they're, oh my God, here we go again. They're going to want money. What do they want this time? Technologies utilize parents, guardians, community. There's more affirmation. Is anybody going to look at this? Is anybody going to care? Affiliation. Do they get to work with peers outside, other experts, adults, partners? That collectivity aspect, interdependence, that's affiliation. And you may be thinking, look, none of this is all common sense, loyalists. Why are you even sharing this? Because again, remember when I talked about it's really not a recipe. We're all artists as educators. We've got to have autonomy. We're unique. Our students are unique. Notice that there's no one size fits all. And I want to be very clear about this. Listen to me now. I want to be very clear about these 6. When we talk about these 6, do we use them every day? No. Do we use them all at the same time? No, probably not. Do we consider them? We always consider them. They're always in the backdrop. And we're looking for ways. These are spices on the spice rack. That's why I call them spices. They're spices on the spice rack. Do we use them in every dish? No. No, we don't use them in every dish. We pick the ones that fit. Do they fit for this activity? Do they fit for this kid? Do they fit for this time and moment in the curriculum? Is in our methodology of delivery? They're spices. Do we use them all? Probably not. Sometimes, maybe, very rarely, but we use them as we see fit to use them as teachers where they fit. All right? So I'm not telling you. Now, the 3 questions, is that an every time deal? Yeah, that's an every time deal. That's every time, all the time. Every time, all the time. What about the 4 essential things yeah, that's every time, all the time. Do you need to be following content, sequence, curriculum patterns, having a good, well-being emphasis in your classroom? Yeah, that's every time, all the time. That's every time, all day, every day. Non-negotiables. The 6 is a different thing. The 3, 4, every day, all day. The 6, maybe not. Maybe not every day. Probably not every day. Because there is a time and a place for explicit instruction, right? Make no mistake. There's a time and a place for it. I'm not saying throw explicit instruction out the window. You can't do that. There has to be some structure and organization. But when appropriate, let's build in some time to, more time than we're probably spending now, to orient a final dish that we can prepare to put these spices in. Maybe not all 6, but some. I mean, if we can hit all 6, we're walking on the moon. I mean, we're walking on, not even the moon, we're walking on Mars. It's probably a little hot on Mars. I don't know, bad analogy. Strike that from the record. But the point being, We don't use these every day, all the time, and all inclusive, all at the same time. We pick and choose. They're spices. Who's the chef? You're the chef. You decide when to unleash these magic spices. So again, and choice goes without saying what that is. Authenticity, present realities, participation in the task, a source of pride, right? You want them to be proud of their work. It plays back into that affirmation. Do students feel a sense of accomplishment, right? Because they've persevered. They've spent a lot of time and effort of their own outside of class pursuing. That's part of engagement, spending their own time. You want to know if kids are really engaged? That's when they're spending their own time doing the content which we would like them to do. And that doesn't mean homework. That doesn't mean doing 20 extra math problems. All right. That's really not a measure of engagement. That's more of a measure of compliance. That's the same, only different. Think about that for a moment. So, so when we throw all these things together, right, there's a little graphic for you. When we throw these things together, what we feel like we end up with is, and you can see that we've put the four essentials in there along with the spices. That's when we get engaged. That's when we don't necessarily, we're not guaranteed, but that's when we have a better chance at engagement or agency, right? Which I think really the two go hand in hand, and I think agency has been that missing component we've been looking, or that a lot of researchers miss for about 2 decades now in their pursuit of engagement, because they've really been missing the boat. If you look at engagement research, it's been focused more on behavioral engagement than it has been on cognitive engagement, and which is very hard to measure, as you can imagine. It's almost impossible to measure, but certainly there's got to be an individual component of agency and ownership to be able to elicit and look at someone's cognitive engagement. They're not getting there unless they're owning it individually in their brain. So anyway, so that's I'm not trying to make you dizzy here about just going to see if there's any. Down at the bottom, just a little note here down at the bottom, where you see, risky even. This involves that setting the atmosphere for initial failures, right? Meaning that, okay, well, what if I try something and it doesn't go well? We need that space as educators. We hope that we're working for administrators that give us that space to take risk in the classroom, right? Right? How can we stretch and grow and provide these kind of novel learning environments if we've got an administrator that's breathing down our necks, always wanting everything to be done with a recipe or a formula? Well, that doesn't lead to very much autonomy, does it? It doesn't lead to creativity. So we've got to be given some space, and we have to be able to provide and pass that space on to our students to be able to say, look, it's okay if this, yeah, it sounds good. Let's, give it a try. And if it doesn't go well, we'll come back and adjust it, man. We'll regroup. It's okay though. It's all right. And so that's what we mean by risky. We don't mean, let's go jump off the roof or something. That's not what we mean. Okay. But I think you get that. So I wanted to just make an allusion to that. So again, this is just a little bit what I was talking about. When do we add these spices? When do we design work? When we want to take it to a new level, when we want to take it to a higher level, when we feel like this is a concept, this is an element of the curriculum that we need to move deeper in, right? Not all of the concepts in the curriculum warrant this type of work, because a lot of them are supporting when we look at elements inside of our curriculum, a lot of them are just more supportive and foundational. And then those ones that are truly, truly build up to be essential in nature, well, those are the ones where we really want to look hard at this SPICE design work. And we really want to build on these foundational elements and bring it all together, so to speak, in a bigger deal, in a more of a, you know, the word evades me, but hopefully you understand what I'm trying to get at. Capstone experience. That's the word that I was trying to think of. So what we've done now is I've taken you through rapidly. We'll go back to this. I've taken you through this 3, 4, 6 rapidly. I've tried to lay a foundation and model for you some of the things. What I want to do now is I want to put you in breakout groups, and I want to let you talk to each other freely about what is resonating with you about this, if anything. And when we meet back, I want you to let me have it. I want to hear the good, bad, and the ugly. So you're not going to hurt my feelings, but I think it's important that we have this breakout dialogue, and then when we come back in the big tent, in the big you know, in the big circus, we're able to talk about, look, I think this is where this fits. I don't see this fitting in my work. What do you think of? I just want to hear your thoughts, let you guys talk about what's happened here thus far today. So, so guys, I know you love that. I know you love breakout sessions. And I was just talking to Melissa, who's here helping us with technology today, helping with the session and making sure that everything's recorded and that you get your PD credit that you're earning. I make sure all the bells and whistles and boxes are checked. And we were talking, I said, you know, I know they love that. And I really have not done a completely proficient job of modeling what I'm putting out there to them, because I haven't really given them a chance to affiliate with each other during the day. And I could have easily asked you, because as adults, we love that discovery route, you know, asking, hey, well, guys, what do you do to elicit engagement and agency in your classroom? And then I could have given you 10, 15 minutes to talk to each other. We could have came back, we could have built a board, you know, together, and we could have put those words up, and then I could have tied it all back in. And then at the end of the day, you would have said, yeah, all right, Loyalist, that's good. You just rounded up all the stuff that we already know to do, and we put it, and you discovered. I'm glad you learned today what we were able to teach you. As adults, we like that better, and I understand that. But time constraints prevented a model like that. So I've tried to sort of take you through rapidly in the time, and then let you have this opportunity. So that's a long way around to saying, I get it. We probably could have done this more frequently and earlier in the session. So I'm going to shut up. You talk to me. Talk about what you talked about, what you like about this, different perspectives, mindset. Is it too simple? Is it silly? Is it useful? Talk to me what you guys discover. What'd you glean about anything?
In our group 4, we talked about how this has been a refresher, and since COVID, it has been more of just what we needed, I guess, to get back into the teaching profession.
Yeah, I can appreciate that, because you guys have just been, you know, you've been pushing, you know, the online, you've been pivoting. And then it's been more about just pushing out content, pushing out, and it's hard to elicit and do. It's hard to bake up the fantastic dish with the spices when you're limited in your format and contact, right? I think that's what you're saying. Yeah. That's cool. What else, guys?
I was telling my group that with this spice of choice, that well, with COVID, everything has been so limited and choice really kind of went away. I teach first grade, and so being able to add that back into my classroom this year, now that we're just going to be completely back to normal, is going to be, I think, very good for my classroom. But then it's also, I'm going to have to be pretty creative based on the roster that I'm coming up with. I need more kinesthetic and gross motor type activities, because my roster is not going to do well with a lot of just sit and do this center at your seat, or do this on your Chromebook, or complete this worksheet, or read this book. They're going to need a lot more big gross motor type activities, and so I think that's a spice I'm going to have to do a little research on before school starts.
We kind of talked about the same thing in group 1, just along the lines of transitioning from COVID and, being a virtual student going into a classroom, and how I'm in the elementary level, at the elementary school. And so the kids who went home during COVID were in kindergarten, those kindergartners, and now they're second graders, and some of them were home virtual last year, and they don't have the stamina to really do anything. So you really have to make your lessons engaging. Some of our students, they use Chromebooks, and we transitioned to Chromebooks in first grade. And so our second grade teachers were having to teach how to use a Chromebook, because they didn't get that in first grade. They went from iPads to Chromebooks. And so it was a whole new learning experience for the second grade teachers, the third grade teachers, things that previous grades normally teach. Not everybody got it, because if they were virtual, they didn't get how to use Chromebooks, how to use scissors, just regular things that we take for granted in the normal school year did not happen this year. And so, just making your lessons more engaging, making them shorter periods. I can't, what was her name? Rhonda was talking about, she's a virtual teacher, and her lessons are about 15 minutes. And, that was really good. And these are high school kids. And so a 15-minute lesson, we kind of have to reduce how long our lessons are, and our curriculum doesn't really allow for that. Our curriculum it's a 90-minute lesson for literacy, and we have to take breaks, but following the pacing guide, following what the district says, it's like, you can't take a break. You have to get one lesson a day, and here's this, and you don't have time. And, and so that kind of comes in with what Dr. Loyola said about advocating for your students. We know a first grader can't sit there for 90 minutes without a break. I'm not sure a fifth grader can sit there 90 minutes without a break. So just really changing up everything about school after COVID hit.
Yeah, I just appreciate what you guys are saying. And I think at the very first of this morning, one of the things that I led with that you and we were considering is that competitive aspect of the learning model has changed. And, it changed before COVID, right? COVID was just a factor that pushed the envelope and put the realities more out there to us, of being able to pivot and look at different modalities. And now we're dealing with the repercussions of that as brick and stick institutions of what we consider the K-12 environment in public school at large. We've got to go back and think about the competitive environment of, hey, they've got a taste of this virtual. There's virtual academies out there. Now we've got all of these other societal situations where people are, charters, and, oh man, these constitutional schools and fundamental schools and all these things. It's a very competitive environment, and we're going we have, just out of the very nature of survival, we have to realize that this learning model has changed, and we have to find the flexibility to do different things. But then what I'm hearing you guys say is a lot of you've got administrative backlash that is being held over you that's preventing you perhaps from being creative and doing some of these things because of the of being sticklers to more of a lack of autonomy. If you've got to do this, you got to do that, you got to stick on this pace. And at the end of the day, it's about bringing the ship home, right? I get it. You got to get from point A to point B. And as an administrator, that's a non-negotiable. If all of you were my faculty, I would say, look, I get it. You don't really have a choice. You got to get from A to B. You got to bring the ship to harbor. How you get it there, when you get it there, just get it to the harbor. That's your business. And so I hear a lot of that. All right. So you guys continue. What else? Anything else? Practicing the wait time. You guys are saying, hey, you said we were getting out early. It's approaching 20 till here. You're still running your mouth. So what do you think? And I get the 6 spices, guys. I think you guys understand that. You know that you're not strangers to that. But the thing that I want you to consider with that is the autonomy portion. It really should be your choice as the instructor when to deploy those spices. Where do they fit? There's no checklist. There's no widget, gadget. It's really your creativity, your autonomy that elicits these qualities, right? Because that's what they are. They're qualities that you can embed in the learning experience. That can't be a force fit. And sometimes, because that takes the creativity and autonomy out of it. So what I want to wrap up with is the 3 questions. Guys, what do you think about those 3 learning questions? What would you think about, if you envisioned an environment where that became central and core to the work? Whereas if an administrator walked in to your classroom any given day of the year, and they went to your first grader and said, hey, what are you doing today? They went to the student, said, what are you doing today? Why are you doing it? How do you know if you're doing it well? And they would expect the students to be able to respond positively to those questions in context, in their own way. Do you think that could move the needle? Is there potential there, or is that just an altruistic oversimplification? Give me some feedback on that.
So you could walk into my first grade classroom and you could ask anybody what we're doing, and they can tell you what we're doing. They probably couldn't tell you why. So I definitely can do a better job of explaining why. And the whole, how do we or will we know if we're doing it well? I think I'm going to have more open conversations with my students, maybe about their progress monitoring or their assessments, things like that, because I don't think any of my first grade students could honestly say, well, how do you know you're doing that well? She gave me a sticker on my worksheet. I don't know. And so I don't think that they could answer that.
Well, there's an element to that. I mean, there's some affirmation involved there, but do you think that spills over into that agency that we're talking about? There's a certain, if they're clear and lucid about the standards that they're to meet, the expectations, do you think that increases their ability to own the work? I think we could all rationalize it. Yeah, there's a possibility there. We don't know that it's a guarantee, but it certainly ups the chances of increasing that ownership in the work if they understand if there's some of those other qualities involved. So to me, the key is the why. We've found over and over that unlocking the why is what really moves this thing. The what are we doing? That's pretty standard. That's content. That we do all that with our objectives, our goals, our targets. Right? Generally, we share those with the kiddies, and but oftentimes when it gets to the why, the answer we get, we've seen this in our practitioner observations through the years, thousands of times, is the kids will, well, it's on the test. And the key, that's not compelling. It perhaps is true, but it's not compelling. So the why is what unlocks this, guys. And the part about the standards is compelling. Is it compelling? You know, clear, transparent. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's neat. But the key is compelling. Is it compelling? Focusing on that word really drives home it really adds a good driver to when we're building that. How do we know if we're doing it well? Is it compelling?
I did a presentation on this and I can't remember off the top of my head, but knowing, we did something about learning targets with our teachers last year, and the Hattie's effect size from just knowing why is great, or it's a good number compared to not knowing. And so we told our teachers, if our students can grow just by you telling why they're doing something and making it relatable to them, that is not hard. Like, that's something that can be put in any lesson. And, just like adults, we want to know why we're asked to do something or why we're having to do something. And so as a coach, I try to put everything back and change the perspective so that teachers know why we're doing something. We're doing this because you want to know why we're doing it. So now your students need to know why they are doing it. They just don't necessarily have the knowledge to ask why, except unless you have one of those 5 or 6 year olds that's like, why not anybody. Most kids don't ask why they have to learn math or why they have to learn something. But if you give them a reason and tell them, they're going to be more engaged because they want to find out what they're going to do.
Oh, I just realized I was muted. It can certainly lead them off on that journey, and answering that is important. So thank you for sharing. In the Hattie she was referring to as John Hattie's work. So thank you, Jennifer, for sharing that. Well, guys, I'm going to share my screen again one last time as we say farewell for now. Come on, there we go. So again, I wanted to share this slide with you on our, let's see, on our programs that we offer, and invite you to look further into that and explore our website. And I just wanted to thank you guys for sharing this morning. And we'll have your certificate information available to get you the credit. But man, thank you so much for attending the session. Thank you for what you do with the children in our state, in Arkansas. I know a lot of times that sounds like hollow rhetoric, but guys, it's important. What you do is so critical in the work you do. I know how difficult it is. It's a tough profession, and and we're always getting black eyes from the news media, and it seems like we just keep getting, but it is important work. It's appreciated. And so with that being said, you guys try to enjoy your summer and stay cool, stay safe, but enjoy that time off, recharge those batteries so you can get out there and fight the good fight coming up. And hopefully some of these mindset shifts will help you, and hopefully those administrators will let you have some freedom and creativity in your classroom to do these things and still keep pace, right? I get it. So they want you on pace, and that's important. That's important too, but there should be some flexibility in there. So thank you guys for what you do. Appreciate you for tuning in to our UCA opportunities to get this professional development. We know you have a lot of options, but we sure as heck appreciate you being with us. And thank you. And that's all I got, guys.